We're not on the Jumbotron in Times Square or anything.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Right.
After this podcast,
Yeah,
it's possible.
after this podcast. Don't worry, guys. I looked up your numbers. I'm under no illusions about what this podcast is going to do for my for my metrics.
For the home team. This was for the home team.
Hey, welcome to Tailgate Beers here. As normal, we've got Austin and Ryan here. Hey, we're again on location. We have been graciously invited out to our friend Joe Stamm's shop, garage.
Yeah,
what do you call it?
Just the garage.
The garage?
Yeah, it's the garage.
I didn't even call it that we got invited. I very
Well-
well could have invited myself.
Well, it was the difference of me having to drive and me not having to drive, and in that case,
Worked out well.
You guys came here, yeah.
But yeah, we're over at Joe Stamm's garage, and we're set up and gonna have some great conversations here with Joe.
We'll see.
Joe is an artist here around Central Illinois, but certainly travels regionally too. We've got some show announcements he's talking about up in Minnesota and South Dakota too. We'll get into in a little bit, but very graciously opened up his garage for us to come out and do a Tailgate Beers episode. So again, thank you, and
You bet. Good to
welcome,
have you, man.
welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being. Wait, do I say thanks for being here, or do you guys say thanks for being here?
Thanks for
you say
inviting.
thanks.
Thanks for coming
yours.
out.
Let's just all
Thanks
say
for-
thank
thank
you.
you. Let's do a cheers.
Let's just all
Let's
say
just
thank you. Yeah.
do a cheers.
At my house,
Where's
but
Luke?
it's your podcast. Yeah. Where's Luke? I texted him. He didn't reply.
We just announced Cruisin's birthday show, 5th annual.
5th annual. I've been doing it 4 times, and this is gonna be the 5th. In
How'd
fact, I have the 1st annual. No, that was 2nd annual.
How'd that come about? Of doing a birthday show, just a nice local
Well, because
show?
we travel so much, and on my birthday weekend, I didn't want to be traveling away from home, but I still wanted to make money.
Right.
And especially when we started this thing 5 years ago, I couldn't really afford to take weekends off. So the solution was, well, let's just do one close to home. Then I don't have to travel, but I can still work. And so we started doing them at Cruisin's down there, and we're still doing it because it's
Why
been
not?
working.
Yeah.
Yeah, people seem to come and enjoy it.
We were talking about the artwork earlier, and I'm always fascinated by it. I mean, I actually liked, which one was it? I mean, the cat head one is pretty good.
That was a birthday show weekend, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I did like the 2nd annual one. I thought that one was kind of simple in its own way. But
I'm not sharp. I think the horse and the cat, that was probably the 3rd annual. It doesn't say. It wasn't enough. It's funny how the 2nd annual was enough years to say that it was a thing, but the 3rd year, evidently we didn't think it was enough of an annual thing to list that it was a 3rd annual.
and all of that was done by your wife?
Yes, she's done all these designs. She's done all the record designs that I've got on the wall.
Okay.
She does all our t-shirt designs. She did tap out for a couple designs last year right after giving birth. But other than that, she has designed everything for us since I think 2017, 2018.
Who comes up with the ideas of like that one having just kind of a nature, looks like a little Bambi scene really on that one, too.
She came up with that one. She also came up with the horse and the cat.
I feel like that one she got kind of to the last minute. Was like, I don't know. Here's what I got. I kind of
All the
forgot to
birthday
make
ones tend to be like that. But I mean, it's a horse and a cat drinking beer or some good drink, with human hands. It makes a lot of sense.
And you weren't even surprised. You're like, whatever you want to do.
No, yeah, I think that's great. But really, it's both. Sometimes I have the idea for the Scooter Boot tour. There, it was going to be the Running Around Tonight tour, which is what this spring is going to be. But because right when that tour was kicking off, I tore my Achilles last year, and so I was on a scooter. My Achilles, and I was on a scooter. So I was like, "What do we get? Like a basset hound in one of those doggy wheelchairs?" And so that's we were just worked together on it.
How'd you tear your Achilles?
Trying to play basketball.
Where?
Riverview Grade School. They
Really?
have
You go down to
they have a
Riverview?
Wednesday
Yeah.
night thing. I went twice. I played once. So last year about this time, I'd been wanting to play basketball again for years. And we first met at basketball, Metamore basketball camp.
Yeah.
You're a cocky little shit.
No.
And yeah,
changed.
yeah.
No.
Nothing's changed.
Trying to shoot the three, and and dribble behind your back and stuff. And anyways, so I'd wanted to start playing pickup basketball again for years, and so I finally went to Facebook and was like, "What are the men? What are the places men gather? Men of a certain age gather to play pickup basketball?" And there was Riverview, which is not far from my house. Played on Wednesday nights, so I went a couple times. And the first time I went, man, I was balling out. I mean, this one kid literally compared me to Dennis Rodman.
Come on.
Yeah, these kids don't know how to box out. They don't know how to reach up and grab a ball and
No.
slam it against the other hand and make a big loud snap. Come down with your elbows swinging. These kids don't know how to do that.
I teach that now.
Yeah.
Because they have no idea.
Now, the second time I played, I went up for a rebound and thought somebody came up behind me and kicked me in the back of the leg. But what happened was nobody was within 10 feet, and my Achilles just snapped.
Is that like a loud pop I've heard with those?
Yes, yeah. I don't think anybody else can hear it, but you can hear it in your own body.
That was a fear of mine right around COVID time, because even around COVID, I was playing almost 3 times.
I don't think that snapping an Achilles was a symptom of COVID.
No. Nope. It could have been in the long
Maybe I had
list.
COVID
But I'm
last
saying
March,
around
and
COVID
that's why
time,
it happened.
For whatever
I
reason,
thought it was just because I was old.
For whatever reason, mine was super, super tight, and I had a major fear of tearing my Achilles.
Yeah,
and
it's a legitimate thing of men of a certain age.
Well, and Luke, speaking
He's
of Luke,
torn everything. We're talking about Luke Maurer, by the way, for you listeners who don't, and for you listeners who don't know who Luke Maurer is, he is a childhood friend of mine.
local legend.
Really? Are we using that a little?
You don't think so?
In what circles? He's not here to defend himself.
No.
He was going to be here.
I think I
ended
his basketball career.
He flaked out.
He tore his Achilles on my ankle.
No, he tore his ACL.
I thought he tore his
Oh,
Achilles.
he did tear his Achilles.
At Metamora High School, when we used to all go up there and play, and I was,
When was this?
I mean, I was in my 20s at this point.
Huh.
When they used to have those open gyms and stuff up there, and you used to come up on the Sunday
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Kiefner, with Ronnie
Yeah,
Kiefner.
yeah, and
you
he'd
had the
always
Jesus hair.
Ron would always
going.
be like a 6-pack in,
Yeah,
and
but those used to be some fun times. We used to
those
play
were great. Yeah,
up at Metamora High School, and that
Those
league ran
Sundays were
for
great.
like 20 some years.
yeah, those were great.
Those were
great
good
games.
days. But again, COVID for me really shit on all those leagues. And for the first time at 31 years old, I'm like, I don't remember going 2 days without touching a basketball my entire life until COVID.
No kidding.
I swear to
Stuck
you,
with it that long.
I played 3 times a week up until COVID.
Yeah. I wish
Now
I
I
kept
play
playing.
Sunday mornings at Washington. Try to get him to come up.
Yet,
They play Wednesday nights also over the Central.
See, a year ago, I would have been like, "Where? When? I'm there."
Now you're over it.
Well, I don't want
It's
the other
still-
one to go.
You've also got a younger kid at home.
Well, I
too,
also had to.
and-
I had to end up. I had to put off surgery so that I could play 2 shows with Charles Wesley Godwin last year that were scheduled in front of sellout crowds in Minneapolis and Madison, and on a scooter, and then have surgery. I mean, and we had to cancel 11 shows. It's just
not
it's
worth
not
it.
worth it anymore.
It's not worth it at this point to get injured
much,
and then all the things that it's going to come
Not
with.
to
But man,
mention,
I love it.
Not
though.
to mention, when I did come back, it was miserable. I'm up there on a scooter, one knee up, got the scooter in park, and then even when the scooter, I didn't need the scooter anymore. It was a month or 2 before I could stand up there comfortably. So we're talking about like 5-6 months until I could even perform comfortably.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it anymore.
Both of you were Metamora grads. Both
Who,
of
me
you
and
athletes.
Austin?
Yeah.
He
So
was
you-
a camper at Metamora the Metamora's basketball camp.
No, ours goes back further than that because you were my 7th grade youth group counselor
What? At Miracle
at
Camp?
Miracle Camp
Oh, I didn't remember
when I was in
that.
junior high.
I didn't remember
We've
that.
talked about this.
Well,
Dude, it's so funny because
you-
I think we knew each other before, and this is
I wasn't a counselor. I was a waterfront director. But I probably subbed in. I had to sub in once a week for the counselors on their night off. So that's probably what was going on.
No, I swore that it was the whole time that you had to deal with us because something happened with a counselor, and you had to deal with us for like.
I had to
I
fill
mean,
in
the
for a
whole time.
longer period of time.
I feel like yeah.
I
'Cause
was-
you just didn't give a shit.
I was probably one of the worst Miracle Camp employees in the history. Like, I applied the next year after being the waterfront director.
What does a waterfront director do anyway?
It was it directs the waterfront. There was a lake, and so it was like the head lifeguard.
Oh, okay.
And there was a boat. You'd take kids, around the lake on a tube, and there was a blob, and you lifeguarded and managed the lifeguards and stuff. But once a week, the counselors would get off for a night, and you'd have to fill in, which I hated working with the kids.
He was not a fan.
Not,
And I honestly,
kids.
I can't even remember really the grade that I was, but I'm not even kidding you. Like, you were with us for a certain period of time, and then going to Metamora.
Yeah.
I'm about 10 years younger than you.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think you were still kind of in the scene of basketball, athletics in the area at that time, and I started going to Metamora in 2003 timeframe, 2004. And so I think you were just around. So I think that's how we kind of came to
Yeah, I
to
don't
meet.
know.
But-
I remember you from basketball camp.
right. That's how a lot of that came about.
And you would have been in grade school at the time, or junior high at the time.
yeah.
Yeah. That was long before. That was long after. That was long before 2003.
But then, and again, these are all foggy memories.
These
for
people
both-
don't care.
No, they don't care.
Ryan
these are all
doesn't care.
these are all foggy memories.
Who
But I would
cares
say
when me and Austin met anyway.
But I would say, listen, I will say, so me as a high school or even around that point, dude, I don't know. I looked up to you. You were an athlete at Metamora. I'm trying to be an athlete, going there. You drove me home in your red, I don't know.
Oh,
what
that red
little
Toyota Tacoma truck. Oh, that was awesome.
A couple times,
truck was awesome.
And because your brother worked up at
Hit Miracle Camp.
Camp.
Okay,
too,
so
and
that was probably the year I was just a lifeguard. My brother was a waterfront director.
Okay. Honestly, then you'd come up to basketball, and you and I would talk, or that were out. And at one point, you were working at that gravestone place, I think, by the state
Mastercraft
police.
Memorials. Yeah,
then-
you're making some pretty big leaps in the timeline here, but yeah.
I know, but I'm trying to go through my brain of really
All right,
our
all
only
right.
connection. These are just my blips,
Yeah.
and then from there we've just known mutual people, and
Hey, it's always great to meet the
Metamora,
fans, Austin.
and then aside from that, then it kind of went MIA for a while, and
Yeah, and then you popped up working for USA Concerts, and now
Yep.
we've been working together
for several years,
on shows and whatnot.
and that's kind of our history.
When I have complaints, I text you and bitch about why shit's not up online. And
Yeah, that's always fun.
But I hear too that you're a pretty good quarterback for
I
the
was
Metamora football team as well.
I was a long time ago. If you search hard enough around this garage, you'll see some artifacts.
And then went on to college, played
Went on to
quarterback.
college and never played. I had a shoulder injury from high school that never quit. So I was playing fetch with my dogs today. I still throw the ball underhand. I can't throw overhand or anything anymore. So yeah, fortunately, I don't have to play guitar overhand though.
Right.
I can do that.
Makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah. It's just,
So then when did you take the leap from being quarterback at Northern and into music?
it was less a leap and more of a slip. Just kind of a slip on an icy pavement. I had to take an arts course to graduate college, so I took an intro to guitar course. And I was really into music at the time as a listener. And I really liked songwriters like Chris Knight and Reckless Kelly and Pat Green and stuff. And so Chris Christopherson. And so once I could put a couple chords together, I just started writing my own songs, and they were terrible, but it was a start.
Yeah.
And then in the last 20 years now, they've gotten incrementally better. So to the point where I'm able to make a living writing songs.
So now,
Okay.
are you? I was thinking of this on the way here. Even, I mean, you're full time, nothing but music, right?
I have been for 8 years now. September was 8 years. So when I quit my job, and it was a very good job there at Mastercraft Memorials, on Lord's Road there in Germantown Hills.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. Yep.
I'm sure they're natural.
that was your
listeners.
last-
If you
that's your
dead,
job
go
to
get
quit.
your stone there.
Yeah, if you're watching this,
If you're watching this and you're dead and you need a gravestone,
if you're in the market for a gravestone,
We have a new sponsor.
yeah. If you're watching this and you wished your radio dial wasn't broke or you were dead, it's never too early to plan ahead. No, what was the question?
that was the last job you had.
Yeah, that was the last job I had, and I was gonna give it 1 year and just see how it went. And I figured at that point in my life, I'm pretty young, and I've always found a way to land on my feet ish throughout life. So I just figured, why not try it? I didn't think I could continue to wait and then still say maybe someday I'll pursue music full time. And yeah, I haven't looked back. Every year has improved upon the previous. So Achilles tears notwithstanding, it's been a good run so far. We're not on the jumbotron in Times Square or anything.
Not yet.
Yeah.
You're right.
After
But
this podcast,
yeah,
it's
after
possible.
this podcast, don't worry, guys. I looked up your numbers. I'm under no illusions over about what this podcast is going to do for my for my metrics. No, but no. All jokes aside, yeah, and we found a comfortable spot in the ecosystem that is out there for independent artists, and we're just kind of working at it.
How far are you traveling on any given year? I mean, what's your kind of radius? Are you going all across the country? Is
Yeah,
this,
and I didn't exactly notice that Ryan called me a regional artist or anything, but we do get out to Idaho and
I did
Wyoming
remember him
and
saying that.
Montana and Arkansas and
Before we came on
Georgia
camera, in all
and
defense,
Texas.
he did say that's where I picked that up from. So I wouldn't have even known that. I mean, as far as that terminology, but he did.
He called himself a regional.
Well, earlier when we were setting up, there was at least, and maybe he meant 15 years ago he was a regional artist. So
15 years
You just
ago, I was selling
apologized. Well, you just
gravestones.
apologized to him,
I
so he doesn't-
apologize.
15 years ago,
Edit that part out.
I was selling gravestones and had just moved back into this place. So I was definitely not a national nor regional artist, and I'm totally busting your balls anyways. I don't care. You can call me whatever you want. This year, as far as shows that are on the books this year, I don't know how many states.
So it's
But-
expanding each year. You're kind of
Yeah, our model is and this starts right here. I mean, when I started playing in a band back in 2013, my first band, it was like, all right, well, we'll start in Washburn, and that was our first gig, was in Washburn, Illinois. And then it was like, all right, if we can just get like to Chillicothe and Washington and Peoria and just kind of grow our circle a little bit bigger, which was practical in the sense that I had a full-time job, so it's not like I could just go out and hit the road, and also practical because you can't just go out and hit the road and say, all right, man, I'm gonna get a gig in Texas
right.
and be a Texas artist, because nobody's gonna know who you are. You're gonna drive all the way there, you're not gonna be able to charge any money because nobody's gonna know who you are, nobody's gonna show up. And so we've just kind of tried to widen our circle as we go, and that's gotten us. Like this year, we have shows in the books in Idaho, Wyoming. That's probably the farthest west. Colorado, of course, everywhere in the Midwest. And then we've got some in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas in a couple weeks.
Oh,
It's much more than regional.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, West Virginia.
well, the first band you were in.
We're
kinda
still
go-
not coast to coast though.
All right,
So
all right.
we'll give you
the first band you were in. Were you? What was it called? I mean, did you go into it as like the lead singer, as the person? Were you just a guitar player?
Yeah. No, I'm not a very good guitar player. So that would have been.
So you've always been the singer.
Yeah, that's really the only thing. Like I can write songs and I can sing, and then I can play guitar, acoustic guitar, serviceably enough, as long as there's some other folks backing me.
And where did that? So at what point did it transition to, hey, Joe Stamm Band, like this?
Well,
Put our stamp on
We
it.
were the first time I played a show was in Washburn, Illinois. At this place at the time, it was the Corner Corral, but it was on a curve, so everybody called it the Dirty Curve. And and we pulled up, and on the banner outside, it was a Pabst banner. I still have it. It said Joe Stamm Band, like the processed meat, Joe Stamm Band. And the thing about it was, we weren't even the Joe Stamm Band at the time. We were Joe Stamm and the 26ers. So it was just all different levels of disrespect. And we were the Joe Stamm and the 26ers for about 9 months or so, and then the guys that I was in the band with, there was some dissension, some discord, and we split up, and they had come up with the idea for the 26ers. They took the name and started their own Facebook page called the 26ers. And so at that point I was like, well, fuck this. I'm not going to go through having to create a whole new Facebook page again, you know. So that's when it was the Joe Stamm Band, and I've been just the boss ever since, so that nobody can say, well, I'm splitting up. We're splitting up the band. Well, no, you're not. You're just going to quit, and then I'm going to hire somebody else in your place. So that's when that became, and that was the end of 2013. So we've been the Joe Stamm Band for I guess 11 years. Yeah. 11 years.
Like, so it's kind of funny because I had texted you when the Clinton announcement came out, and you were
When the what came out?
when the Clinton announcement came out, and you were
Clinton?
Clinton, Iowa. You're playing a music
Oh
festival.
yeah, I thought you were talking about like when Bill Clinton was elected.
no. Too
much
the
president
president.
when you were
Stuff happened this week.
when you were Jose
Inauguration
Strom
week.
when you were Jose Strom
Jose
Band.
Strom Band, yeah. And
When
then they, I love how they fixed it, but then they just said Joe Strom Band.
So I'm like, will you just? I had to email him 4 times, and then I was like, dude, I'm definitely making a shirt with Joe Strom
Yeah,
Band. I'll be
no, it
there.
has. If you're gonna do it, it has to be Jose Strom Band.
Yeah,
Jose
Jose
Strom.
Strom Band. Oh.
Yeah,
We're gonna have those for the birthday night.
they're huge down in South Texas.
And it was so. What's even more ironic about it is the fact that I was in Texas. I get off my flight. I see all these messages. I'm getting like, I see the announce, and I'm getting these emails, and then I see this shit, and I'm messaging him, laughing kind of about it. But then I'm emailing this person saying, "Hey, you got to fix this." And then I get to Chris's house, and then in the room I'm staying in was that picture I sent you.
Oh wow, yeah.
And tell us something about this, and we'll post a picture of it. This is something you recently started to do, or have you
I've
always
been doing
done
it
this?
for years. I've gotten a little bit more involved with them. So I sell on our website. You can order handwritten lyric sheets, and I write out. You can choose the song. You can choose who to dedicate it to, and then I like to doodle. I wouldn't call myself an artist or a drawer. So I'll write out the song, and then I'll come up with some kind of little doodle that fits with the lyrics of the song, and then I do that. So that's what you were looking at in your friend's house.
So how do you go like around here? I mean, we're outside of Lake in Illinois. I don't know if you want me to say that out loud or not, but
I
outside
don't
of Lake
care.
in Illinois, which I'm from Henry, and we've had that conversation
Uh-huh.
off camera. But how do you find people that
Thanks.
as far as band guys, drummers, and whoever to?
I've been really fortunate. It's just kind of like a follow the bouncing ball thing, like you have somebody in the band who knows somebody when an opening opens up, and then you bring them in. I wouldn't consider Peoria, Illinois, and the greater Peoria, Illinois, a mecca for musicians that want to do this full time, either whether they're capable or whether they wouldn't want to, because it's demanding. We got five guys, including me, in the band that do this full time, and everybody has side jobs. I'm the only one who doesn't, but you could say that running a merch game is a side job. There's a lot of stuff I do other than performing shows that generates income for us. But I got fortunate with some really good guys. I mean, Dave Glover's our guitar player, has been in the band since since September, I think he started rehearsing us, 2016. And Bruce, our now bass player, started with us as a drummer that same month. So those guys have been in the band for 8.5 years. And when we lost our longtime bass player, Bruce moved over to bass from drums, because we found a drummer before we found a new bass player. And Tim Cramp is from Bloomington, and he's just a great drummer. He toured with Backyard Tire Fire for years all over the country. We're very fortunate with the folks we got, particularly, like I said, and no disrespect to the Peoria area's musicians, but
Right.
it's not like a Nashville where you've got
absolutely.
a community. It's not like a Chicago or a Nashville where you've got this just these whole
Plethora.
communities of
Yeah.
people that are musicians, they're starving artists looking for gigs. It's just not like that here, because there are some great artists in Peoria, for example, that they're not gonna bum around the country on for 3 or 4 days a week for 10 months a year.
Right.
You know,
Right.
So, into that comment, and I honestly, truly don't know the answer that you'll have to this, but
I don't either.
speaking of this area versus Nashville, I mean, what is your thoughts, or I guess why have you never uprooted and took the journey to Nashville like you hear of every artist? Because you have been grinding in this area for a long time,
Yeah,
and here you sit and
11
talk about,
years.
you've gone from a regional artist to, really a national artist right here out of, Central Illinois
I was a
area.
local artist for a long, long time,
Yeah.
and still am in a sense. But it started for one. It started for a couple of reasons, and then it's over time it's turned into a different reason. The initial reasons were just very practical. One, I had a very good job, and I wasn't very good at doing this. Certainly not good enough to go down there and expect to hit pay dirt. And two, I love Central Illinois. I didn't want to leave. So that's why I originally didn't do it. But as I continued to not do it, the people in Central Illinois, and then that ever widening circle I was talking about, which has now turned into Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri, and now even beyond there, those are the people that are paying my bills. So there's just no reason for me. I think the model for success in this business is different than it was, say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when you had to go down to those places in order to plug in and meet the people that could help you make a living. I did this when in social media and all that stuff. It's harder now to create presence as an independent artist than it was when I was starting to do it. It was easier 10 years ago. You didn't have all the algorithms determining who you were going to reach as much. You got more reach, you got more attention. You could build it up locally and create more hype locally than I think you can now. You had more control over that stuff, and so I was able to kind of in that stage, I was able to kind of build a local following through social media, when you kind of had more control over that, and then I've just never had any reason to leave. At this point, if I could work with people in Nashville at this point and still not have to leave. Again, I haven't had the privilege of anybody ever coming to me from Nashville or anything and saying, "Hey, we want to make you successful." That's never happened to me. There's opportunities I haven't had, largely because I haven't been down there. But I do know some of these. I mean, I have some of these people's numbers. I have some of these people's emails. There's people I got to harass down there to do it. Whether they would or not, I don't know. If the cost is having to move to Nashville at this point in my life, for success, then it would have to be a pretty big step of success. Because right now, I've been paying my bills for 8 years doing this full time without having to go there. So
And you've
it's
made
just not.
improvements every year. You said
We've
of
been
your
yeah, we've been
following,
slowly growing.
you
It's
growing.
kind of like putting on weight or losing it. It's like you don't feel like you're getting fatter every day,
Just
but
one
when you
day
see
you
a
wake up and
but when you see a picture of yourself from a couple years ago, it's like, shoot, I've put on 20
yeah.
pounds. It's like looking at some of these tour posters from a few years ago, and it's like, oh man, we're playing a lot better shows than we were then. It's
Yeah.
those small incremental steps to improvement that we've noticed, but there's never been a big leap.
But tell me I'm wrong in the fact that is that not the stereotypical? And every person we've interviewed has a story, whether they moved from Canada, whether they came from any other part of the country and drove to Nashville, got their break, and they tell us these stories. And I don't know, just always wondered. I mean, you sit here steadfast, kind of growing, doing your grind, and I don't know. I've always wondered from even a fan perspective or even a promoter's perspective of how that connection or your thoughts on Nashville are, because I mean, being in Nashville on Broadway and the people have played bars for their whole life trying to find some break, and it always seems to stem around Nashville to make a life. But then here you've made a living for 8 years, and enjoyed, doing it, and
Yeah,
you're not even connected at all, or you have no ties to
really
Nashville.
not. I don't. And that could explain. I think I was very fortunate to meet a guy named Matt Glass, who's my booking agent, several years ago, and he's just an enthusiastic music lover who liked our band, and
Is he? Where's
he's out of Chicago,
Okay.
suburbs of Chicago, and he just took on our booking several years ago, and he's been doing it for years, and he's just a guy. He's like me. He's just a guy who decided to do it. He's not in an agency. He has a full-time job, and he's been such a huge blessing for us. And it's just that's been our grassroots approach. Could we take different approaches? Could we hunt down? Matt would probably be glad to hunt down somebody to take it back over for him. But could we hunt down agencies? Could we hunt down management? Maybe. I don't know. I have no idea at this point in our lives. But we've done it this way not because we had all these options and chose it. It was just we've done it this way because the only option was to do it ourselves,
Yeah.
and that's what we keep trying to do. We just kind of try to keep doing it better.
You also have the, again, you kind of did the air quotes of, success. I mean, you also have the people that have success, but they've also sold their soul. They've also pretty much signed over everything, and hey, they're having success. But at the end of the day, it's also changed a lot for them. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
you see
know.
that all the time.
I can't speak for anybody when it comes to that. I can just say that at this point, for us, my model of success is can I live comfortably, which we are, and keep doing this. So far,
And you're having fun doing it.
so far so good.
So far, we're crushing it.
Yeah, I watched the Magnificent Seven. Have you seen that movie with Chris Pratt and Denzel Washington
I have not.
last night? And Chris Pratt tells this joke. He's in the movie, and he talks about this guy who jumped out of a fifth-story window, and everybody in every story on the way down heard him yelling, "So far, so good."
What story are you on?
Well, I'm more the guy that's falling from the fifth-story window, yelling, "So far, so
Right.
good."
So what story are you on
I
right
don't
now?
know.
That's what I'm asking.
I
How
don't
many more?
know.
How many more
I
we got?
don't know.
Is it a 30-story building, or
Right.
still to be determined what size?
Yeah.
So sticking with like the industry and where country music is at today, where do you feel like your your music fits in there, if at all, or some of your influences that brings you to what you do?
I have no idea where my music fits in. That's just not something for me to ever decide. I can tell you that my influences are guys like Chris Knight, Chris Christopherson. Those are my really early influences, because the thing about music that draws me in is lyrics, and I think those guys are two of the greatest to ever put pen to paper when it comes to just meaningful stories and meaningful lyrics and interesting lyrics. Interesting stories. Currently, guys that are doing it right now that really inspire me are Jason Isbell and Charles Wesley Godwin. I think they're probably my two favorites that are actively writing and releasing music these days. But where my stuff fits in, it's like trying to say what genre are you, what subgenre are you. I don't know. That's for people.
They're going to place you wherever they.
Yeah, that's for listeners and people writing periodicals to talk about. I don't know. I hope that people would consider me a good lyricist and a competent writer around that stuff. That's what I'd like to be.
Have you wrote for anybody other than yourself?
No.
Never.
No.
And you have no interest in ever.
Sure, if somebody wanted to say, if somebody
Take
wanted
some
to
publishing.
say, yeah,
Because our stories, and
Yeah.
the people that Ryan and I have got to meet
Oh yeah.
are very interesting. Where sometimes it is interesting how people have taken the story, or not story, they have taken the writer's route and then turned into artists, or went artists that turned into writers,
Or do it on the side.
or
I mean,
do
a
it
lot
on
of
the
them
side.
just-
And that's, again, another very fascinating thing that, you said Jason Isbell. There's somebody who is not mainstream but has hits. He's a writer that is tied to a lot of different stuff, when it comes to writing.
Jason Isbell is a unicorn in the sense that a lot of songwriters aren't necessarily great musicians, and he is both. He's a savant in both respects.
I look at the lyric side of things on every song I listen to. I always click the credits to see who wrote it and how many artists are writing their own
Yeah.
stuff. And I think once you do travel down that path of these behind the scene people in mainstream country music, let's just say,
Right.
it is crazy how many people have just hit after hit after hit, and
Absolutely.
they have never been on a stage.
Well, because once you get that hit, then everybody wants your song because he's a proven winner.
Right.
You know. Now I say that as somebody who has absolutely zero experience in that world.
Right.
You know, it's the same thing we're talking about with Nashville and working with agencies and managers and stuff. And you ask me, well, would you ever let anybody, you know, has anybody ever cut one of your songs? Would you let them? Blah blah. Fuck yeah, I would.
Mm.
You know, if there was somebody who wants to cut my song, whether he's popular or not, you're welcome to it. You know, making a living in this business is like putting change in a jar. The change that's in your pocket at the end of the day in a jar, and people, for instance, people bitch about Spotify rates and things like that. It's like when you get home every day, you take the change out of your pocket and you put it in a jar, and after a year or so, when the jar's filled, you take it to the bank and you got a few $100. Well, this business is like that too. I would absolutely be up for it if people wanted to cut my songs. That opportunity has not presented itself. So again, it's similar to what I was talking about with agencies and management in Nashville and all that stuff. Now, have I pursued that? No. You know, because that's not what charges me up. What charges me up, like I love the creation process. I love writing, I love recording what I've written, and I love putting it out there with merchandise. Like, and because I love the creation of each of those stages. And I don't have a desire to pursue the publishing deal. I don't have the desire to pursue meeting people in Nashville who could scale my career. I have the desire to write. I have the desire to record. I have the desire to release music. I have desire to release artwork that my wife generates that I can contribute ideas towards. Like those are the things that charge me up. Thinking about pursuing somebody to cut my songs, thinking about pursuing somebody to sign me, that's the kind of shit that drains my energy even just thinking about it. So if those things came along, I would entertain them. I would I would probably do them. It's just nothing that I'm going to spend my time and energy pursuing, because there's only have so much fucking time in the day, especially with a toddler in the house.
Well, you also hear people that once they do get signed, then there's this pressure of now you have to, follow through with, whether it's writing so many songs, coming out now, and now there's a timeline and there's these expectations that are they can be tough. But
yeah, and I don't need any more of that than I put on myself. I was finishing up a record right now that we recorded in December, and I've been going back and forth with Al Torrance, who's the producer, with the mixes. He's been sending me mixes, and we've been talking about them and reviewing them and blah, blah, blah. And I've had this time off for the last 2 months, and I'm kicking myself like, man, I haven't really written shit. I've written maybe 1 or 2 songs in that time, finished them, but they were started already. I just haven't been sitting down and writing, and it's like I have to step back and be like, because I'm finishing a fucking record. Right. It's okay if this is a small period in my life where I'm not writing, because I'm focusing on finishing, stuff that I've already written. So much of this business is just, how do you keep people paying attention to what you're doing? And if you're not writing, if you're not producing content for them, whether that is making interesting social media posts, or whether that is releasing records, the latter being the most important, then they're gonna move on, and they're gonna stop thinking about it. They're not gonna buy tickets. They're not gonna buy merch, because.
But you can't just force those songs out. I mean, it's got to come when
can.
No, yeah, but I'm saying like
you can, because as you do it longer, it just becomes something that's work. It's a great kind of work, but it's a matter of just sitting down. No, you can't sit down and say, if I don't write a hit song today, well, hit songs, if I would know anything about hit songs.
So you think you could push yourself and just be like, I'm gonna write 2 songs a day?
No, I don't write at that rate. But I could sit down for a week for for an hour each day and work on one song until it was done, that you can absolutely do that. And because it's not this mystic. Everybody wants to chase that unicorn where the song drops out of the sky and it's done in 20 minutes. And those happen every once in a while. But the only way those happen, the only typically the only way those happen, if you want them to happen on any regular basis, is if you're showing up on a routine basis and working at it. And that's what writing a song is. It's fucking work. And I'll sit in here and I'll say, all right, I want to write one verse. And by the time it's done, you might not keep 25% of the words that you wrote on that page. But if you show up every day and you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, you can write a song. The writer's block is I don't want to say it's a myth. It's a real thing for people, and it's, at least conceptually, it's a real thing for people. They think that's what's going on, and I'm probably going to get cursed with it after saying this. But I think, it's a matter of just showing up and doing the work. And even if you think you're blocked, if you just write, then you know what happens? You write, and then you just revise and revise. This is what I do. It takes me a month or two to finish most songs. But it's just because you go back and you visit, and you'll find that certain lines, certain words, they're just not hitting right, and you go back and you go back and you go back, and that process is fun. What's intimidating is just the act of sitting down to do it.
Right. See, and I've never wrote a song, but I have struggled with when I write, let's say even in manufacturing and stuff, when I write long, let's say big proposals, all this stuff. And I had a mentor, a boss really. He's like, Austin, you're trying to spit out the perfect words.
Yeah, you just
in the first crack. He goes, just diarrhea of the mouth on the page. Just literally just
start somewhere.
Just put it out there. I mean, you can always delete it.
Right.
And then ever since he's ever told me that, I really tried to not. I've just tried to just let her rip. Sentence. Here's a thought. Here's facts. Here's bullet points. And it's just like,
yeah.
Ugh. By the time he was done with it, though, I was like, holy shit, that really turned into something.
There's a book I read by Anne Lamott. It's a book on writing. It's called Bird by Bird, and she tells a story about when she was a kid, her brother had this report that he waited to the last minute to write. So it's the night before this report is due, and he's got to write like a paragraph on this big old list of birds. And he's sitting there at the table, and he's paralyzed and upset because he's got to write this huge report on all these different birds. And his dad comes over and says, "Son, bird by bird." And that's the thing that's so intimidating about sitting down to write. You sit down to write at any particular moment, and it's like, fuck, man, I got to come up with a song. It's like, no, come up with a line. Line by line, by verse by verse. Bridge, chord, and if you start to just allow yourself to, and you can apply this to all kinds of things in life, but it works so good for writing and just big projects that are intimidating. Just bird by bird, you just start with one thing, and then work on the next thing.
I just think I thought of our viral little moment we could do is we could show up here and pay Joe to teach us how to write. And we could write our jingle. We could write our intro. So we've been talking about what song. You know, every show or every podcast has like maybe a catchy tune at the very beginning.
You guys are looking for a catchy tune?
We were just talking. Well, right now we use Lakeview's. We use Lakeview's song. You know, but we were just talking. I don't remember who we were talking to, but I'm like, man, wouldn't it be cool to like write our own little like jingle that everybody relates to this? But
trying to write a little jingle that everybody relates to this. I mean, that's what I do. That's what I try to do for a living. I'm still working on it. As far as the viral part, that's the catch.
Well, I'm saying what'd be funny is if we were here and you were like teaching us, like we were at
class.
Yeah, like a class.
All right,
students. We got a chalkboard up here.
Chalkboard?
And,
oh, it's whiteboards these days,
yeah.
man.
Well,
you guys are so out of touch.
We could do a chalkboard, but
do you primarily write by yourself? Any of your band guys do any writing or anything like that?
Nobody in the band does writing. Dave, the guitar player, has a couple writing credits because like he'll start some lick during sound check that I'll end up writing a song around, you know.
Yeah.
Nobody in the band has written a single lyric to anything ever. Again, part of this is a product of just being isolated, very much isolated up here in central Illinois, that I'm not plugged into a community of musicians. Like for instance, if I was living in Nashville.
Right.
So I haven't done a lot of co-writing. I have written a couple songs with Charles Wesley Godwin. We wrote one called Flower of the Everglades that released on my Allegheny record. We just finished another one back in December together. I think those are, and I'm not just saying that because Charles is famous and having a bunch of success right now, but he's literally, I think I co-wrote one other song in my life. That was with Nick Sizemore, who's a local guy here. But I just have written by myself pretty much.
This
This
where
is
you
it.
do.
We used to have a room in the house where I would write, but that has been turned into a nursery.
It's important. Just as important.
Yeah, it's just
Not more important.
Yeah, it's more, yeah. So this is my spot, man. A couple of years ago, we just decided to put some money into the garage, and we insulated the ceiling and put the furnace air conditioner in, and moved this couch from the old writing room to this place, and I built the workbench and put up a TV, and this is where we practice, and this is where I'll write. So if it's a day where I'm planning to write, I'll typically come out in the morning, I'll read for a while, and then I'll sit here with usually this guitar, and I'll mess around with ideas.
And a dog friend too. I don't know where he or she went. But,
He went inside. I think the door got left open, and he saw that his opportunity. He's not very social, and I think he probably realized that the couch was going to be a mistake. By the way, Austin, that is dog drool, in case you were concerned.
You think that was? I didn't know you thought it was for me or.
No,
I didn't know
it was there
maybe
before. I just wanted you to
didn't know
feel.
if it was
I
how
just
the-
didn't want you to feel
How
uncomfortable.
kids were conceived? Or...
No. Clearly not. It's all over the couch.
Well, that's true.
not the one that's inside anyway.
So we're at about 58 minutes right now, which is crazy. When we started this off,
Yeah, I thought we were at least 3 hours in by now.
well, when we started this off, and you tell us whenever you want to stop. But what's funny is Ryan and I were talking, like, man, how are we gonna get 30 minutes? And I've said, at this point, I said, Ryan, you and I have been on the phone for an hour and 20 minutes talking
just
about
talking
shit.
about it.
Okay.
30 minutes? You kidding me?
Well, no, because at the time when we had never done a
You could bring up a
podcast,
random topic and I could talk
That's
about it
actually
for
what
30
tap
you,
dance for
yes,
30
but
minutes.
when you're talking about interviewing an artist,
Oh,
or
you're talking
somebody
about when you
else,
were first starting the whole idea
the whole
for
podcast,
the podcast.
and never done it. And I'm like, dude,
Right.
what's crazy is as we've done this, we have, trust me, never been short of topics or never been
No, because
short on
you're working
time.
with it. You're working with a kind of person who loves themselves. So they will sit here and as long as the topic is the artist probably wants to sit there and talk about it. That topic.
That story.
Quite a bit.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
because even George Burgess camp was like 15 minutes, top. At like 25, I mean, we could have gone for another 30 something.
And I think he
George
was enjoying the
Burgess.
conversation as the camp was like, hey, let's wrap this up.
You like George Burge. He wrote, what was his big hit
Cowboy
song?
Songs is out right now. That's big on the
Beer,
radio.
Oh,
Beer,
if it's
truck.
If it's a radio, and I don't say this as in a snotty way.
yeah.
I say this in an ignorant way. I just don't listen to the radio. So
Yeah.
if it's
Neither
on the radio, I have no idea. What
Neither
you're
do
talking
I, because
about.
I don't listen to any radio
Very out
at
of
all.
touch.
At all.
I am the
However-
old dad who doesn't know what you're talking about if it's popular.
What do you think the most popular artist that you actually know or like? Maybe you even thought you weren't going to like them, but who do you think you actually liked? You're like, I never thought I would, or this is probably the most pop, country art or popular band. It doesn't have to be country that you like. No, I know them and I like this. And because I sat at tailgates and I said a comment about somebody that was playing, and you go, Austin, I don't know who that is. And I said, I mean, they're pretty popular. And I don't remember who it is. I don't remember who it is. And I'm like, I don't know if it's like you're sick. 'Cause I don't listen to radio
Did
either.
I tell you this about, speaking of a very popular person right now, did I tell you this story? There's a certain popular person who was on that same day with us last year at Tailgates and Tall Boys before the whole night got canceled.
Okay.
All right. And so all day there's the forecast was the forecast. And so the artists were kind of going back and forth, like, is this going to happen? Blah, blah, blah. And this dude's TM was like, hey guys, if you hear anything, will you let us know? And then vice versa. I was like, yeah, no big deal. So this was when I was still I couldn't walk around. This was still when I was I might have just gotten my boot off from the Achilles tear surgery.
Okay, because I don't even think I talked to you at all that day because of all the
Yeah,
craziness. I don't even
yeah.
think I saw you.
So I just gotten out of my boot that week, but your staff knew that, and so were like, "Hey, anytime you need a golf cart, take one, whatever." So I went out just to get some air. We were in that green room like all fucking day waiting to figure out whether we're gonna play or not. And I go out and just to do a tour of the grounds, just to kill some time. And I'm on the golf cart, and I see this artist and one of his bandmates walking around. And so we had just heard that an announcement was going to be made at like 4 o'clock. And so I pulled up to him and said, "Hey, letting you guys know, we just heard they're going to make a decision at 4 o'clock." And he's like, "Okay, thanks. By the way, can you get me one of these golf carts and a couple security guards?" It's like, well, I'm actually an artist playing right
Can
before.
you say who it is?
No, I'm not. I don't want to give him shit.
Okay.
But I'm not actually an artist playing. But this is, but of course, because I don't know anybody in Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. So you haven't said who. So who is your most popular person that you do know? That's out
that I
right
do
now,
know.
that you actually would say, hey, you know what?
Yeah,
I
sorry.
like this person.
Like personally, or I like their music.
Both, or music wise, because I do feel like you can be a tough critic. Even the few times I've talked where you're like, I don't listen to that shit. This is what I listen
I don't
to.
say I don't listen to that shit.
Whatever you say.
People's opinion. I mean, everybody likes different stuff, and there's nothing wrong with anybody's. Whatever you like, any music you like, I'm down with it, man. For you, I'm just not
Correct.
necessarily going to listen to it. But if the artist is out there that's just doing it for money, well, fuck. If people are buying it, then
Yeah.
there's worse jobs.
So who's the most mainstream person you like?
Probably Zach Bryan. And
Okay.
it took me a
I would
while.
have never guessed
It
that.
took me a while. First, I think because I liked more. I think I started liking more of his stuff a couple albums in. But I also think I was a little resentful. It's like this fucker just makes these shitty YouTube videos and I've been out here in this dignified world of traveling around playing in these shitty bars and nobody gives a shit. And this guy turns on a phone and makes these shitty videos and he's instantly a star and he's never had to go through any of the things.
Yeah, never has
we
played
do.
clubs.
No. But that said, after a couple of records and after hearing enough of it, I was like, well, these are really good songs, more power to him. I do have a friend in his band, so I guess that's why I say that's like the closest connection I guess I have to somebody that famous who I really like. And my nieces are big Zach Bryan fans, and so when they realized that I knew that I'm friends with one of the guys in the band and that I've hung out with his dad a couple times. It just made me that much more cool in my niece's eyes, which before that, my nieces, they don't care.
I actually really was never. I still wouldn't say I'm a big Zach Bryan fan, but my kids, Luke, my son, he started just listening to him all the time and really, liked it. I got more beers.
Did I?
for
I
you,
was
buddy.
gonna say I thought you
I
brought
got
me a
you,
new
I got
one,
you
and then that new one was
Before you
gone
pop it,
already.
you can put a koozie on it if you'd like. But
Oh, sure. We got to do our promotion for.
you don't have
Aren't
to.
you
You
a
don't have
part
to
of?
put-
Aren't
you
you a
don't-
part of some festival or something?
Yeah, you don't have to put the koozie on it. I just before it got limp and it was hard to put on. I
When's Tailgate and Tallboys gonna wrap my trailer and pay for the trailer?
don't know. We should figure something out though.
It seems like
I feel like we should know
USA
somebody.
concerts would be. Yeah. Is there somebody we can call?
Yeah, we'll call somebody.
So
Big
that's
time.
probably the closest person. I mean, anything else, man? I don't know that I could name a song on country radio. And again, that's not me being a pompous ass and saying I'm above it in any way. It's just not something I tune into.
Well, on that topic, we'll go ahead and jump into our Surfside segment.
Surfside.
Although you
You've been
did try,
telling me all about
you did
these,
try one of these a little bit ago.
natural
So,
flavors and non-carbonated,
yeah,
so you don't get
No
full.
bubbles.
I might as
No
well just
bubbles.
crack one just
Crack
for
it.
the fuck of it.
Shoot it. I think you should shoot it.
Are you two-fisting that thing?
I'm
You just go
two
ahead and-
crotching it, I think, right now.
If you guys
I
had
think you
mic
you
stands,
shotgun that.
you could have one in each hand.
If we had mic stands, we could. So, anyways, we'll do a segment here with Surfside. I've asked this question. I'm sure you've seen it on our podcast. I'm sure you've watched.
I've
All of
every
every
episode,
single one.
Every
Um,
episode.
So you're on the Joe Stamm Band private jet flying to Minnesota, or possibly the East Coast someday, and you just so happen to have every album known to man on the plane and a parachute. It's going down. You're about to be on a deserted island for the rest of your life. You can listen to 5 albums for the rest of your life. That's all you're taking out of the plane. What 5 albums are you going to listen to?
Chris Knight, Jealous Kind. Charles Wesley Godwin, How the Mighty Fall. Creedence Clearwater Revival, Chronicles. Chris Christopherson, Silver Tongue Devil. Fifth one, probably Chris Knight, Enough Rope.
2 Chris Knights on there.
Yeah, he's my hero.
All first.
Yeah, that's all of them.
Yeah, those would be the ones that could get me through a lot.
Do you have a vinyl player?
I do.
Do you listen to
I do.
vinyl?
Yeah, it's kind of been decommissioned for now because it's in the living room, and Katie wants to go up to the receiver and fuck with the knobs all the time. So we got the knobs like off of the receiver.
Gotcha.
And then we've got the lid on the vinyl player taped down.
Yeah.
And we can't take vinyls out and put them up on display while the one's spinning because she wants to take that. Like, she's just into everything right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not convenient.
She's in that
for casual
mess with
vinyl
everything.
listening.
Do you think that vinyl is still one of like the purest ways of listening to music, or are you nostalgia with those? Are you into that type of stuff, or?
No. I mean, I think it is not the best way sonically to listen to music. CDs are much better.
Okay.
Wave files are much better. But there is a nostalgia to it, and the thing I like about it is it's a way of listening actively. So you can sit there with the album art. You have to get up every 20 minutes and flip the side. So it's not like something you can put on a playlist and then clean the house.
Yeah.
You do have to be engaged with it to a certain extent. So it's fun in that respect. So I do love it, but it just has its place.
Yeah. And so you're writing this album now that you were talking about.
I'm not writing it. We recorded.
Well, you're recording.
Yeah, we recorded it. We're finishing up post production.
Okay. So as you wrote that, or as you're placing those songs, and I still love albums start to finish.
Me
I
too.
still live in that.
Me too.
We live in a world of random music and singles and all that stuff. I mean, I love when somebody does put an album together from front to back, cover
I do too.
to cover. Do you? Was it pretty easy for you to place all the songs and feel like from start to finish, or do you even put much thought into?
We put a ton of thought into it, and it's not easy. When we started the demo process last January, we rented a place up in northern Illinois and just immersed ourselves in starting to figure out what songs we wanted to do. And we did a bunch of demos, and I think we started with like 16, 17 songs, and we cut that down to, I want to say 12 or so that we thought were the better songs, and then we ended up writing I ended up writing a couple more, and so we even dropped a couple off there. We ended up recording 13 songs.
Why is that the number? I always wondered that. What makes it to where you need to stop at 12 or 13? Why couldn't you just put 16?
On a vinyl record, it's an actual physical thing. And the grooves are what make in the record are what make the music. And so those grooves, there's only so much room on a record. So it accounts, you can do about 20 to 22 minutes on a side.
Okay.
And get as the highest fidelity that you can get. If you get too much, then you start to lose the content. I don't know the science of it. I just know that on a vinyl record, you have about 20 minutes ideally per side.
Okay.
And so I think that's originally why the 10 to 12 song format was what worked. And became the standard. Nowadays, you got Zach Bryan who wants to put 20 songs on a record, for example. And if he's going to put on vinyl, he just has to press 2 vinyls in one. And people do that. They can do that. But that's traditionally why it's a 10
Okay.
to 12 song format. But I think that is such a good, like, that to me. I love albums, because that's a package that, probably just because I grew up with that. That's what a package is. Like, that's the full painting. That's the full work.
Thumbing through the artwork and
Yeah,
the
absolutely,
pages
and
and the
that's what's fun
lyrics.
about records, man. I'm so glad that they've come back, because it gave people a reason to buy a physical product again, for one. So for merchandising purposes, it's great for me, but also because it's just such a, and it's a souvenir. You go to there's so many times we'll be at a show and be like, we don't even have a record player, but we just wanted to have a record because we had such a good time and it was so great.
Yeah, put on the wall.
Yeah, and yeah, I have a friend who does that, and still doesn't have a record player, but he buys records at every show he goes and he puts them up on a wall.
See, I love my record player, and I still like the process of doing that. And I have old records from over the years, but I also have like records that you wouldn't even think, like super hard rock records. But someday my kids, will maybe get it and hey, this was dad's. These are chapters of dad's life.
Yeah, absolutely. Heirlooms, you might say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you got some shows coming up this weekend. So as this gets released on Tuesday, you've got a run coming up. What this weekend? Where you heading?
Are you talking about the week with Charles Wesley Godwin?
Yes.
Yes. We're going to be in Sioux Falls, South Dakota on Thursday, I believe. And then on Valentine's Day in Minneapolis. And then we're doing two in Minneapolis at the same place because Friday sold out. And so we're doing Saturday at the Uptown Theater in Minneapolis as well with Chuck and the boys.
And you mentioned before we came on camera too that that Minneapolis or Minnesota overall has kind of taken off for you. Was that over time? Has that just been, what do you attribute that followership to?
Yeah, and by taking off, I mean there are a core group of a couple hundred people up there that really love us. But I just attribute it to it. We started playing at a place called Ryder's Saloon in Henriette, Minnesota, which I think is about an hour north of the cities or whatever, and we just built a core following of really enthusiastic people. And sometimes it just takes a few ambassadors
Mm-hmm.
to get talking and create a community around them, and that's what those folks did up there. Minnesota's been good to us.
That's great. And so they can go check out on your socials and get connected that way
You
if they're
can
not
find
already.
us anywhere you can find anything. I don't do a lot of TikToking, even though my agent tells me I need to do more of it. I stop by about once a month to hang out there for about 5 minutes, and then I get off. It's just there's only so much time in a day. I only have so much bandwidth for that kind of stuff. But I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and occasionally I'll stop by. I believe they call it X these days.
Mm-hmm.
You make some funny videos though.
Every
Every
once
now and again, I catch it one, and
every
because
once
I'm
in
also
a while, every once in a while, I'll a blind squirrel finds a nut.
because I with our business and all of our stuff. I mean, I don't know. I kind of get tired of it too, and I don't go in there scrolling. And when it comes to like Facebook and stuff, but then I'll catch one of yours, and just I don't know.
And you'll sit there and just appreciate it.
I do. I
Yeah.
really do.
Well, they want these every day. Every all these events and venues and festivals. They want this video liner from you, like, hey, I'm Joe Stamm, and I'm reading off a script, and this is where I'm going to be on this date. I hope you guys will be there. I hate those. It's always like some guy with their phone in their face, like right there. You can see
Gabby's
how many-
hounding you, telling you to
see
make
how
the
many-
video.
I wasn't going to mention her name, but
Oh,
yeah,
I did.
she's great at her job. By the
Oh,
way.
she is
Yeah,
our
you can
saint.
count how many nose hairs they have and stuff. And it's usually up here. Or
Yours
down
was
here.
fun. Yours was good for ours. I liked it.
And so I try to think of something a little more creative for those dumb things. And usually what ends up happening is it's like 3 weeks after they won it, because I'm sitting there not sitting there, but like in my casual brainless time trying to think of something that's slightly more interesting
Yeah.
than how many eyebrows you can count, because the phone is right up here in my face. So I just hate doing that. I don't hate don't hate it for the sake. It's just they're all the same.
So, and again, we're probably need to wrap up here soon, but like something on that topic though that I feel like since being in this, and I look at these artists that are, again, big up and coming artists, okay, with several million followers, let's say on Spotify, monthly listeners,
Yeah.
and they send me a mediocre picture and nothing else to promote their artist. Okay?
Because they don't need you.
But at the same time, if you have this artist that you think is going to be something, you send out videographers with them all the time. You've got content. You're telling me you couldn't put a one-pager together. Here is Joe Stamm. Here's 3 pictures. Here's some videos from shows we did. Like, that's not hard to
I
promote.
see what you're saying. Yeah,
you know what I'm
absolutely.
saying?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's just crazy to me. And I'll go as big as the biggest eye-opening was in 2022. Morgan Wallen. Hey guys, can we get a picture of Morgan Wallen, like of what you want to use? They email over. And in an email, you know how sometimes it compresses they kept doing it. And I'm like, guys, every time you email this over, it's very low quality. So then they finally emailed over a solid one. Then I had to ask for logo. You're telling me you can't just take an hour to put together a nice little pack of here's a couple photos, here's some videos,
Yeah.
here's our socials.
Like, we have a Dropbox folder that's filled with
yes,
those
you guys do a
assets.
great job. Just
And it's
why
just-
can't
you
everybody
got your
do that to
writer,
promote
you got
your-
your tech writer, you got your house, you got your stage plot, you got your logos, you got your folder of current band
Yes.
photos.
But
and,
it's to promote you.
yeah.
So what
yeah.
I do
it's
now-
pretty easy to do.
So what I do now is I've resorted to, I just go on people's socials and I steal the best video I think that you've posted because you've posted it.
Right.
So I'm like, well,
What's the worst you can do?
if he posted
Apologize?
it,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I need content. I need something because some people do not know who Joe Stamm is, or they've heard
There's
you,
a few of them that don't.
or they've heard you really, and then they're like, oh, I've heard this song before, and so that's what us as a festival try to do. Of like, no, you actually have heard this person more than likely. Maybe you just don't know the name, or they're like, I've never heard of Joe Stamm. She sounds wonderful. I'd love to go. I'd love to go to the band to see Jose Stram. And,
yeah.
You know,
Jose Stamm Band.
no, all
And
joking
the
aside, man,
tambourine
dude,
too.
I appreciate the hell out of you doing this, and I don't know, man. I thought this would be fun. I mean, hopefully
well,
you had fun doing
I
it.
I think the main thing to take out of this was it was a solid as a rock excuse for me on a Wednesday to spend the entire evening out in my garage drinking beer.
yeah,
So
Hey, and
it was
we're
pretty
Tailgate
easy
Beers
sell.
here, and we want to thank Joe Stamm for inviting us out.
Yep.
Somewhat inviting us. Austin might have
For,
invited
yeah,
us.
for
but
accepting the invitation. You mean you
was
invited
mutual.
you invited yourselves,
yes.
but I accepted that invitation and with open arms. You
But
guys
we're
are
out
welcome.
here in his garage. We found out too during the podcast. This is his writing area. This
It
is where
is.
he does all
the
the
magic
behind the
happens.
scenes stuff. So there's a lot of
Sure.
magic that happens on this couch right here.
Yeah, use the term magic loosely.
Have we heard from Luke?
Yes. So Luke, who said he was going to be here tonight, told his buddy he would go to men's Bible study with him, and then he didn't remember that when he told me he was coming out here before.
Well,
I said we get a
here-
cheers.
yeah. Here's the Luke. Here's
Yeah.
the podcast. Here's the Joe Stamm. I almost said Jose Stram, but
Jose Stram
cheers.
and to Luke Maurer.
Hmm.
We miss him, and like I said, it gave me a reason to drink beer in my garage. Not that I really
No, but
need that.
as a disclaimer though, that's an hour 22 you're never going to get back. So we don't reimburse for that.